Hi there, and welcome to Celestial Blueprints, where today I couldn't help myself but look into the birth chart of Mr. Kanye West, the one and only Yeezus. So his birthday, as I found, 8th of June, 1977, born at 8:45 a.m. in Atlanta, Georgia. So those are the dates that we are working with. And as far as I can tell, they seem very correct. So when I was making my guess on what sign Kanye was going to be, I guessed Gemini. And that is because Gemini, particularly in the masculine energy, is one of the most volatile of all of the sun signs. Gemini sun signs need to have a direct and confident moon or rising sign, in my opinion, in order to be able to communicate confidently. Because a Gemini who cannot communicate is one that will get stuck in a mental prison. So Kanye is a Gemini sun. He has many other Gemini placements in his chart, as well as being a Pisces moon and a Cancer ascendant, three signs which I myself would say are the most emotionally volatile of all of the signs. So Gemini energy is twin energy. It is I perceive energy, and it is about self-consolidation. It has the ability to exist in two polarities comfortably and at once. It needs to be seen as curious, and it needs to be listened to by someone who finds it interesting. It needs to talk in order to connect to its intuition. And because of its ability to exist in the spiritual and in reality, it is also at risk of getting trapped in one or between both. So its curiosity can very easily find its way into the depth of this illusion, and they can find it very difficult to escape. So, with a Cancer ascendant and Pisces moon, the risk of getting lost in delusion is incredibly high, particularly with that Pisces moon who is ruled by Neptune and is the master of delusion, okay, and is the master of our addictive behaviors. So on this chart, we can see that the sun in Gemini is in the 12th house and Jupiter is in the 11th house, also being ruled by Gemini energy. So the sun on our birth chart is our central root. It is our ego structure and our essence. It is the light through which all parts of us shine. It's our consciousness and also our life path. And it can show us what we are passionate about and how we like to shine and be creative as well. It's also how much attention we like and how we like to get it. And then the 12th house represents our subconscious. It's our feelings and how we confront people and learn from past actions. It's the afterlife, dream space, and our surrender. It is our unconscious fears, our dreams, our secrets, our hidden desires. And it also represents this idea of the shadow, okay? And it really pulls into it this idea of addictions and fantasies, as well as our capacity for self destruction. So, this chart of Kanye's shows that his subconscious and his conscious exist as his ego self at the same time. So, with that energy of Gemini, that twin energy, the polarity energy, and that curious energy that needs to talk existing in both the subconscious and the conscious space of his ego. So, how he likes to shine and get attention is through his voice. And all of these things exist in a place that comes from his shadow self, from his fears, dreams, and desires. So, at all times, he actually has the capacity to exist on these two planes of existence. Then, when we look at Jupiter, now Jupiter is our expansion. It's our growth, our optimism, our abundance, and our success. And it shows where we are inclined toward overindulgence. And it's also where we might take risks, okay, where we would be willing to take risks. It is our focus on wealth and status and excessive confidence. And it shows where we will always seek the truth. Also, our core ideals and where we like to be a little bit extra. So, the 11th house is friendships, and it's like the house of friendships and social kind of spaces. And it really shows us where we leave a legacy and how we might provide for our family. It also represents careers and achievements, social status, and what we are devoted to. It shows us our goals, our ambitions, our success and fame, and shows what our image is based on our reputation. So, this is the chart of someone whose ego self is connected to how they expand. And this speaks to how Kanye shows up in the world. The way he expands is his fame, is his voice. Okay. And from sharing his ego self, which is in that Gemini energy of using his voice and being curious. And it is from this place of his conscious and his subconscious existing at once on the same plane. So I did an episode of Small Astrology on Gemini Sun. So this looks into the astrology of children and what we can learn from their birth charts in order to best parent them in a way that makes them understand us, okay? So take a look at that if you are a Gemini Sun, but also if you are interested in this, it's very interesting to see where we can go wrong with a Gemini child, okay? So this speaks of the risks of not parenting that Gemini child in a manner they need. And it really opens up this high risk for neurosis, for insomnia, and for psychological problems. Now, this stems from the capacity of a Gemini child to have an emotional overload. And from that emotional overload, being mistaken by their parents as just being a silly kid who's a little bit naughty. That is how that emotion presents itself in the physical world. So, in actual fact, when this is happening for a Gemini child, it is their shadow land that is harboring this overload of emotions. And if a Gemini child finds themselves not trusting their parents, they will keep the truth from them. And this in turn adds to this underlying emotional overload. Now, a Gemini child can also cross from the reality to the delusion very easily in their mind, and children do have quite active imaginations. So this is heightened in children. And so, because they are Mercury ruled, and that makes you having a very active mind. Mercury is our planet of communication and giving and receiving information. And so, because of that, it gives them this active mind that then can add a realness to this slip from delusion into reality and back again. So, a Gemini who is shut down from communication or made to feel like their voice is a burden as a child, and also into adulthood if we are dealing with unevolved Gemini energy, this can really very easily fall into a place of mental turmoil, and you can almost get lost in that. Again, this is why people say Geminis are one of the most volatile of the signs, particularly in masculine energy. So Gemini moods can shift 100 times a day. And as they shift from one side of thought to the other, there's this time-defying curiosity to learn everything. And so a Gemini child, or that unevolved Gemini sun energy, needs to be given direction with their intellect. And teaching others is another way that they learn more deeply. So you often see, particularly in Gemini children, that once they think they have learnt something, their next level of learning is to then go and teach somebody else. And we can see that in the way that Kanye has moved from his place of, his personal religion into now teaching religion to others. It's the next level of him being able to learn more. So then we can have a look at the moon and the rising sign on this chart. And okay, so the moon represents on our chart the non-negotiable emotional needs and desires. It shows us our instincts, and also it's the unconscious side of our mind. It is the mother energy and our moods and habits, as well as how we find our emotional fulfillment. It can help us understand what makes us feel at home and how we nurture others and ourselves. It also can show us our karmic triggers and what makes us feel safe. So, Kanye's chart has the moon sign of Pisces in the ninth house. The ninth house is our house of purpose, okay? But it represents our higher mind, our morals, our ethics, as well as our dreams and our ideas of philosophy. It speaks of energy related to our ancestors, to our personal growth and spirituality. And it can show us reasons why we might be more fortunate in areas of life and where we might also confuse our opinion with fact. Okay. Hold on to that piece. It is also where we might take impulsive gambles and where we will also find our chronic dissatisfaction if we don't know when enough is enough. And so this area of Kanye's chart is ruled by Pisces energy. Now, Pisces energy is a very interesting energy. It is the energy of I believe, and it is ruled by Neptune, who is the planet of the dream space and illusion. So, this is the energy of the healer, the victim, and the universal love. It is this idea of the deep, dark ocean water sign of emotions, and it is unlike all other signs. Pisces energy is an ethereal energy and it encompasses all of the lessons of the zodiac. And it represents a level of energy outside of the typical elements, okay? You think of the other zodiac signs, earth, air, fire, water. And even though Pisces sits in the water, it is not the same as Cancer, as Scorpio. It is part of this you can think of as the part of the ocean that has been undiscovered, the deep, dark parts of the ocean where all of those creatures lie that we have no idea what they are, okay? That is the Pisces water energy. And Pisces energy is very attached to trauma. It has the ability to transmute darkness into this ridiculously high amount of power. So to take its trauma and transmute it into power. But that is when it is evolved and when it is understood correctly. Because the journey through evolving a Pisces energy is one where at first it attaches to trauma. It makes the trauma part of who it is as a person, and it will attach to other people's trauma the same way, okay? And eventually that for the Pisces energy becomes overwhelming. And then the second step of evolving a Pisces energy often involves removing themselves from detaching from emotion altogether. And they become quite unfeeling and unempathetic because they've had this overload at the start. And that is for their self-preservation. And so a fully evolving Pisces energy is one of the greatest healing energies in the zodiac because it does have that ability to use the dream space to imagine a different way to use the darkness of that trauma. Now, I really think this speaks to the way that Kanye is deeply emotional and that his emotions are deeply connected to his ability to shift polarities between illusion and reality. This energy is where we see these stories of Kanye losing his mind, talking just what feels like to us complete nonsense, where he goes rambling, okay? That Gemini energy, that rambling Gemini energy with this deep ocean Pisces ability to shift into a delusion. And that's where he rambles about these spiritual beliefs and his idea of self as if they are fact. Again, getting lost in thinking that his facts are truth. So, because this is where he can become stuck in an illusion, and we see that that truth has become fact for him. Neptune, the ruler of Pisces, is in the sixth house of health on this chart. And this brings with it the heightened risk of mental health being a problem, being a challenge. And because the sixth house, it represents the relationship we have to our body. So our overall body, our mental state, our emotional state, our spiritual state, and our physical state. So Kanye's ability to slip into the delusion, that emotional delusion, and the volatile nature of this emotional overload, of this Gemini energy existing in his 12th house of the subconscious, has a huge toll on his overall well-being. So this is the chart of someone who is definitely at high risk of suffering from a number of mental health struggles. And so then we move on to looking at the rising sign, the ascendant sign. So this represents the window with which we are seen, how others see us and how we see ourselves, okay? It's our impression, our outward persona, and it shows the role that we played in our family system. It shows our approach to life. So this is in Cancer energy. And if there was ever another more emotionally volatile zodiac energy, it would be Cancer. Okay. So Cancer energy is I feel energy. It is very connected to the moon, and that is its ruler. And although it does indeed like to feel and can feel everything to the depths of its soul, a water sign, the emotional overload from this sign is from its intuitive vision of everything that surrounds it. And that is where that Cancer imagery gets its hard shell from, because again, like that Pisces energy, that emotional overload that causes the Pisces energy to repress causes that Cancer energy to do the same thing, and it builds that hard shell around it like a crab. Okay. So Cancer energy is the feminine energy because it is ruled by the moon. So, and it is volatile in the sense that because the moon changes signs every 2.5 days, the Cancer energy moves with the zodiac archetype, meaning that every 2.5 days, it changes its energy. So the combination of Cancer energy in the ascendant, Pisces energy in the moon, and Gemini energy in the 12th, 9th, and 1st house makes Kanye West one of the most emotionally volatile human beings that I've ever seen on a birth chart. And I have personally looked at a number of Gemini birth charts, and I have not seen one that is this emotionally volatile. So the opposition sign to Cancer energy is Capricorn energy. And when we look at the opposition sign to the energy, it's often the part that's kind of hidden, the part that we struggle to embody. And so because it is Capricorn energy, this is where we see if you criticize the Cancer energy, you will get the horns, all right? This Cancer energy, it brings with it poor health because of the repressed emotions, because of the repressed emotions that explode out in this getting the horns, okay, when you criticize it. And these repressed emotional overloads impact our stress receptors, okay? Everybody knows that. And having heightened stress puts you at risk of a number of medical conditions. And so because Kanye's health is highly affected by his mental, emotional, and spiritual house of health, this is where we again see more signs of someone who could have mental and emotional health imbalances and struggles. And if it's not Gemini enough, the next parts of the chart that I found particularly interesting, which I always find interesting, are the Lilith and Chiron placements. So one of the most challenging placements for a Gemini sun is to also have a Gemini placement in the Lilith or in the Chiron, because Chiron is our woundings of the external world that came from traumas that presented themselves to us between the ages of 3 and 23. And it is where we created our emotional reactions and trauma programmings from those things. And Black Moon Lilith placement speaks to the dark side of our emotional nature, from places where we felt guilt, shame, or where we were misunderstood. So Kanye, the troubled little Gemini that he is, has a Black Moon Lilith placement in Gemini in the 11th house. So this is, where we see some of our important personal trials. And this is the way that you communicate and relate with others. And so Lilith in Gemini speaks to this idea of needing to captivate their prey by using words. Okay. So this is like that energy of, instead of innocently picking somebody up on a date by, having a little chat, this is that idea of seducing a partner with words to satisfy their personal pride. Because with this Black Moon Lilith placement, this is somebody who cares more about appearances than anything else. And people with this placement can unintentionally say things that are misinterpreted, that people find offensive, and they really enjoy playing the devil's advocate. It's often that their voice and their opinion is so open and they care very little about how the message is perceived, that when this Black Moon Lilith in Gemini manifests in a negative way, it manifests as, perceived or real rejection. So it gives that feeling to someone with a Black Moon placement in Gemini of being very lonely and feeling that nobody understands you. And sometimes this placement lacks healthy coping mechanisms because it's afraid of rejection. So this is that idea of hurting very deeply when others don't pay attention to you or they're not curious about you at all. And sometimes people with this placement will almost think that they have two personalities, because Gemini is the twin energy. And often at an early age, someone with a Black Moon in Lilith has experienced being shamed for speaking their mind, for expressing their feelings, for standing up for themselves. And those are the parts that they have learned to repress. So with this Lilith placement in the 11th house, this shows up as especially relevant for interactions in social networks, in team spaces, in this friendship energy. And so within circles with this placement, this idea, this destabilizing voice, this with dangerous ideas, it can lead to a lot of struggles. Then we can look at his Chiron placement, which is in Taurus in the 10th house. Okay. So this is a wound of loss. And this is where the individual with this placement will be afraid of losing friends, losing freedom, safety, money, possessions, abundance, love. So this Chiron in Taurus often will go to any lengths to avoid losing things like their home, their routine, the people that are close to them, their favorite possessions, and their money. So with Chiron in the 10th house, you really face like a crisis in manifesting your true purpose on earth, because you are so afraid of losing everything that your focus is on that. So then we can look at this Jupiter placement. So Kanye's idea of expansion, the Jupiter energy in our charts, is in his 11th house in Gemini. So this brings out those parts of his ego self and its relation to his fame and success, connecting them to his Black Moon Lilith placement. And because we can see there that when he has very public issues in the social world, it is because of people not paying him attention. It is because of people not listening to him and not seeing his word as truth. And it's because of people kind of pushing him aside as seeing him as like the crazy person, okay? And these fears of his activate this Chiron wound of loss. And all of this is felt very deeply and from a place of both his subconscious and conscious at the same time because of the Gemini energy. So Kanye's sense of purpose and his lessons to be learned are in Leo in the 2nd house. And this means that he is someone who needs to learn to find his worth through his authentic creativity. And with his Lilith in the 11th house, it really shows that his struggles with finding a place to fit in and finding a place to be part of what he feels his purpose is needs to be authentically creative. And that place is also where he will find his hardest and most empowering lessons in life. So looking further down, his North Node in Libra, like it shows that his most aligned and fulfilling path comes from being able to find balance and in finding give and take and being able to find a happy medium between his own needs and the needs of others through work and fun. And this combined with the Chiron wound of loss and rejection is a very difficult task to overcome, especially because the discipline energy in this chart, which is our Capricorn energy, is found in his 7th house of partnerships. So his purpose is linked to forming partnerships, but his idea of forming partnerships, how he builds relationships, is very strict and it has to follow a certain amount of rules and values. And he is very stubborn about how he builds relationships. And while he understands that a good relationship takes hard work, having Capricorn in the 7th house can make you very stubborn and very isolated because you do not feel that somebody adds up or is worthy of forming a relationship with you. And so you isolate away from it. So because that is his future purpose, all of this is connected and this is his life struggle. How he builds relationships is so strict that making it to his North Node purpose, his Libra purpose of building relationships and growth that way, he is going to struggle. And because he has a fear and a wound of loss and rejection with that Taurus Chiron and the fear of being not heard, not understood, that Black Moon Lilith, and all of this being connected to the polarity and depth of Pisces, Gemini, Cancer, emotional overload, which is what he fears to be seen as, which then activates the Chiron wound that being seen as those things is going to make him lose everything, Chiron in Taurus, just puts on another level of mental overload. And with the high risk, with that Gemini stellium energy, with that Pisces moon and that Cancer ascendant, it just adds to the heightened risk of suffering from emotional overload, which then affects your mental health in so many places. There are so many other parts of this chart that are interesting to me. Having his Taurus placements, Mercury, Venus, and Mars. So Mercury is the communication. It's how we give and receive communication, how we best give and receive, the sort of people we're attracted to. Venus and Mars. Venus is our relationship energy and our feminine energy and our money energy. And Mars is our masculine energy and our action-taking energy and where we find initiative and moving forward. And all of these are in Taurus. And this Taurus energy is that 2nd house energy, that energy of material security, that energy of liking the finer things in life, but also not wanting to work for it. So it is very interesting that someone whose life purpose is attached to building relationships, but they need to be disciplined and follow his rules, while also needing to shine in this place of creative ego and existing in the subconscious and the conscious. I think you can tell from just how this sounds that the emotional overload of that is what causes these mental health and emotional health struggles. And even just looking at the Uranus placement here in Scorpio in the 4th house. So Uranus is the rebel energy. It is how we bring rebellion and revolution to our ideas of values. And in Scorpio energy, that is deep, dark, subconscious land. Burn it to the ground, rise as a phoenix. So when he changes things up in his life, he does so happily burning things to the ground and rising as a phoenix. This is somebody we are going to see remake himself time and time again. And looking at the current energy of where we are in the universe right now with this chart, where his north node is in Libra and his south node is in Aries, we are currently South node in Libra, North node in Aries, which makes his nodes activated, meaning that he is taking through karmic lessons, which are his Libra energy, which are the karmic lessons of relationship building, into his future, which is that Aries energy, that learning about I am. So as he learns about this I am placement of his, this I am energy, and he is trying to balance this idea of relationships, we are going to see him transform in the next 18 months. And there are going to be moments, because we are in Aries Libra eclipse season very soon, we are going to see some very interesting things come about for him, because when we are dealing with eclipse energy, these are fated and sudden and unexpected things that happen to us that are aligning us with our purpose. And he has that North Node in Libra, and Libra ruling his fourth house of family and roots. So I think we can say that we are going to see some family issues coming up for Kanye. And I think that's going to be very interesting for him. I think he is going to have his idea of the hard work that a relationship takes very challenged in the next 18 months. And anyone who is a fan and who's going to be watching him, that is what is going to be happening, with Pluto making its transition from Capricorn to Aquarius very early next year, and being that that is the energy we haven't seen for 250 years. That is also going to be lit up for Kanye, because Libra being lit up by the axis that we are currently on, and Pluto making this 250-year movement, it's going to be a time for Kanye, and it is going to activate so many placements in his chart. His Scorpio energy, what brings him joy, the fifth house, is where we see our pleasure and joy and fun, and that is Scorpio energy. And so when he is bringing rebellion to his life from this place of burning everything to the ground and rebuilding himself, that is his idea of pleasure and joy and fun. That is how he feeds his inner child. And he is activated right now with the nodes of destiny, with Pluto making a move. And he's about to go through a Mercury retrograde that is going to be affecting his Gemini energy. And our third house energy ruled by Mercury, which is in Virgo. And he is about to, I think, start talking away. And I think this is where it's going to start for him. So I'm very interested in this outcome of Kanye based on this chart. And I had such an amazing time going through it. If you have any wants of whose chart you want to see, drop them in the comments, because I am taking suggestions. I think I'm going to be looking at either a sports star or a serial killer for my next one, because I'm very interested in how that reads. Sports stars are very interesting charts as well. They often have very direct discipline energy in them, which I enjoy finding. So yeah, this chart, very, very eye-opening, but also not. Like, also reading it and understanding what we see in the media from Kanye really adds up. And I think this is a very good example of how we can use birth charts to our advantage, and how we can use them to understand our patterns and cycles, and why some things are very difficult for us and why some things are very easy for us. We can see where our triggers might be, where we might be greatly affected. We can also find places of ease, find places that are going to make it easier to move forward in the world. So I highly advise getting your birth chart analyzed. And you really only need to do that once. And then you can understand all of these things. The next step to having your birth chart analyzed is to then look at the universal energy that we are dealing with. So, how the planets are moving, how the moon is moving, and how they are affecting you personally. And a lot of people hear about things like when we get into a Mercury retrograde, which happens about 3 times a year. And this Mercury retrograde often messes up a lot of people, messes up a lot of things. And when you don't know what's going on, you go into it's very much a chaotic mind space as we get slowed down. And when you look at your chart and you understand what Mercury energy does in your chart and what that particular Mercury, so currently Mercury in Sagittarius will be going retrograde, and you can find these tips, these secrets on your birth chart that can help you focus with the energy that's being provided. And through that, we can heal with the cycles of the universe. That is the ancient wisdom of astrology. And it is not about whether or not you believe in astrology. It is about whether or not you know how to use it. And knowing how to use astrology will change your life, will make your deep self introspection and healing so much easier, because it will help you focus in on what you are being supported by the universal energy to heal, to look at. And it won't feel like an unknown chaos tornado. It will feel like a chaos tornado that you know where it is pointing you. So I offer things like birth chart analysis, universal guidance, astrological counseling. I can even use that universal energy to give you some tarot guidance, because all of that energy is connected. So if you would like any of that, jump on my website, book an appointment. We can do it in a Zoom call. I can send you an email with just a written out birth chart. We can figure out a way to get your information to you in order to best move forward in your life and to best understand who you truly are as a person, which is what the Pluto energy wants from us right now. So I have a number of different episodes of astrological guidance on my YouTube. So take a look if you haven't seen them. I make sure that I keep up to date on the weekly astrology weather so that you can keep track of what energy you are dealing with on a daily basis, which again is very helpful for planning out a week, particularly if you run a business. Very good for knowing which days to be promoting certain things and which days to be holding back, because the energy is not going to be as accepting. So, yeah. Thanks for sticking with me. I hope you found this as interesting as I did. Birth charts are one of my favorite things. I find the ancient wisdom in them to be of use in so many places. So please take a look at my other videos. If you enjoyed this, please like and subscribe. It would really help out my channel and being able to get this information to as many people as possible. And until next time, never be afraid to go into the shadows in your chart. Never be afraid to walk out your front door as a completely renewed person. And as always, stay weird.